Welcome to Wednesday and Poetry. That little ding dong you just heard was my devil tool. Some people call it a cell phone, telling me something. But I have it on for a reason. I'm going to do one brief foray into the land of internet and communication because I saw a poem that I just have to share with you before we get on to what I was planning on doing, which we'll get to. This poem is Places I Have Heard the Ocean by Faith Sheridan. In Kurtz throat, in a shell I hold to my ear, though I'm told this is the sound of my own blood. I have heard the ocean in the city, ours against the beach of our street, or in the subway, waiting for a train that carries me in the bed, place of high and low tide, or in my daughter's skates, rolling over the sidewalk. Ocean in the trees, they fill their heads with wind. Ocean in the rise and fall, lungs, every one eye. I just love that poem. Now, since I can't do two things at once, I'm handing my phone over to Connor, who's going to turn it off so there'll be no ding dongs interrupting our half hour together. What I had scheduled for today is a book from the shelves of story and song. It's Marianne Moore, Observations, Poems. It's really quite a wonderful reprint, and I'll tell you a little more about it. We go. It's edited and with an introduction by Linda Levell. Henry Cole had an opinion of this book when it was first published. And he says the sensation of reading Marianne Moore is like no other. She is the most natural, the most, the most concentrated, the most circumspect, the most weirdly precise, the most beguiling poet of the 20th century. Like explosive sunbursts, her poems sparkle with irrepressible feeling, joy, grief, desperation, triumph, and ask, what is virtue? What is vice? What is ugliness? What is hero? What is love? She is my favorite American anti-poet. Those words, Henry Cole. And of course, just to refresh your memory, that is what this sorceress. Now, let's hear a little bit more about her. It took some arm twisting, and this is from the introduction, to get Marianne Moore to publish Observations, the book that in 1924 established her place as one of America's foremost modern poets. Over the previous 6 years, Ezra Pound, H.G., E.S. Eliot, and William Carlos Williams all offered to help her publish a book, but she refused. The world should not allow you to be a recluse, H.D. told Moore when they met one September afternoon in New York. Moore's poems were greatly superior to what people were making a fuss over in London, said H.D., and ought to be known. Moore gave them all the same excuse, that her body of work was too slight for a book. The excuse was partly disingenuous. She had more than enough poems each time, and partly strategic. In 1921, H.D. and Breyer bought out Moore's first book, Poems, against her explicit objections. This infuriated Moore. She wrote to Breyer, who had financed the publication, that she had considered the matter from every angle and decided it was not in her literary advantage to publish a book. She was right. The views of Poems were outright hostile. What is it about Moore's early poetry that so excited her fellow modernists? Initially, it was her departure from sentimentality. She was the first major poet to appropriate for poetry the language of textbooks and commerce. Readers relish her incongruously precise phrases, such as certain Ming products, or the lion's ferocious chrysanthemum head, and miniature cavalcades of chlorophyllus fungi. Language strips away the smudges of romance, as when she calls marriage first an institution, then an enterprise, or when she says to the rose, beauty is a liability. Over the course of the decade during which she wrote the poems in Observations, her precision evolved into more than wit. But so radical were her views that not even her most sympathetic critics at the time tried to interpret. The first edition of Observations was released in December 1924 and sold out within a month. Moore prepared a second edition for publication in March 1925. Now, what follows in the book that we're going to share is the entire second edition. And now, no more. Let's hear the poetry. To an intramural rap. You make me think of many men once met to be forgot again, or merely resurrected in a parenthesis of wit, found them hastening through it, who risk to be in. Met any men like that? Reticence and volubility. When I am dead, the wizard said, I'll look upon the narrow way and this Dante and know that he was right, and he'll delight in my remorse. Of course. When I am dead, the student said, I shall have grown so tolerant, I'll find I can't laugh at your sorry plight or take delight in your chagrin. Merlin, is under a splintered mast, torn from the ship and cast near her hull, a stumbling shepherd found, embedded in the ground. Eagle of lapis lazuli, a scarab of the sea with wings spread, curling its coral feet, parting its beak who greet men long dead, to a prize bird. You suit me well, for you can make me laugh. Nor are you blinded by the chaff that every wind sends spinning from the rick. You know to think, and what you think you speak. With much of Samson's pride and bleak finality, none dare bid you stop. Pride sits well, so stop, colossal bird. No barnyard makes you look absurd. Your brazen claws are stalked against defeat. Fear is hope. No man may hide from death hollow-eyed. To spirits, this shall not suffice. To whom you are symbolic of a plan concealed within the heart of man, splendid with splendor, hid you in your Arab abode, in incandescence, smothered in the flame of astrologer who rode before you, whom you outran, hissing his son. You shall stay with us. Holiday and day of wrath shall be as one, wound in a device of Moorish gorgeousness. Round glasses, spun to flame as hemispheres of one great hourglass, dwindling to a stop. Consume hostility. Employ your weapons in this meeting place of surging enmity. Insurgent feet shall not outrun multiplied flames, O sun. Is your town Nineveh? Why so desolate? In phantasmagoria about fishes, what disgusts you? Could not all personal upheaval in the name of freedom be tabooed? Is it Nineveh? And are you Jonah in the sweltering east wind of your wishes? I myself have stood there by the aquarium looking at the Statue of Liberty. Two military progress. You use your mind like a millstone to grind. You polish it. And with your warped wit, laugh at your torso, prostrate where the crow falls on such faint hearts as its God imparts. Falls and claps its wings till the tumult brings more black Minutemen who revive again. War, little. They cry for the lost head and seek their prize till the evening skies. Diligence is to magic as progress is to flight. With an elephant to ride upon, with rings on her fingers and bells on her toes, he shall outdistance calamity anywhere she goes. Oh, speed is not in her mind inseparable from profits. Locomotion arose in the shape of an elephant. He clambered up and chose to travel laboriously, so far as magic profits concerned. She knows that although the semblance of speed may attach to scarecrows of aesthetic procedure, the substance of it is embodied in such of those tough-grained animals as have outstripped man's whim to suppose them ephemera, and have earned that fruit of their ability to endure blows, which dubs them prosaic necessities, not curious. To a snail. If compression is the first grace of style, you have it. Contractility is a virtue, as modesty is a virtue. It is not the acquisition of any one thing that is able to adorn, or the incidental quality that occurs as a concomitant of something that we value in style, but the principle that is hid in the absence of feet. A method of conclusions, a knowledge of principles in the curious phenomenon of your typical life. To the peacock friends. In taking charge of your possessions when you saw them, you became a golden jay. Smoosh said you turned his charm away, but not his color. Oh, yes, his color, when you like, of chiseled setting and black opalescent dye. You were the jewelry of sense, not license. You but trod the pace of liberty in the marketplace and forth. Yeah, the hugger-mugger repertory of your first adventure is your own affair. Anchorites do not dwell in theatres, and peacocks do not flourish in a circle. Why make distinctions? The results were well when you were on the boards, nor were your triumphs bought at horrifying sacrifice of stringency. You hated sham. You ranted up and down through the conventions of, nor did the king love you the less, nor did the world, in whose chief interest and for whose spontaneous delight odd tale is unfair. I'm going to read you two poems with the same title. Poetry, 1924. I too dislike it. There are things that are important beyond all this fiddle. Reading it, however, with a perfect contempt for it, one discovers that there is in it, after all, a place for the genuine, hands that can grasp, ways that can dilate, hair that can rise if it must. These things are important, not because a high sounding interpretation can be put upon them, but because when they become so derivative, to become unintelligible, same thing may be said for all of us, that we do not admire what we cannot understand. The bat, holding on upside down or in quest of something to eat, pushing. A wild horse taking a roll, tireless wolf under a tree. The immovable critic twitching his skin like a horse that feels a flea. The base, the statistician. Nor is it valid to discriminate against business documents and school books. All these phenomena are important. One must make a distinction, however, when dragged into prominence by half poets. The result is not poetry, nor, though the poets among us can be literalists of the imagination, above insolence and triviality, and can present, for instance, imaginary gardens with real toads in them. So we have it. In the meantime, if you demand on one hand the raw material of poetry in all its rawness, and that which is, on the other hand, genuine, then you are interested in. 1 year later, she wrote poetry, 1925. I too dislike it. There are things that are important beyond all this fiddle. The boat upside down, the elephant pushing the hairless wolf under a tree, the baseball bat, the statistician, business documents and school books. These phenomenon are pleasing. But when they have been fashioned into that which is unknowable, we are not entertained. It may be said of all of us that we do not admire what we cannot understand. Enigmas are not poetry. Choice is yours. Do you want the earlier version or the later version? I'm giving them both to you. Pedantic literalist. Prince Rupert's drop, paper, muslin, ghost, white thought, with power to say unkind things with kindness, and the most irritating things in the midst of love and tears. You invite destruction. You are like the meditative man with the perfunctory heart. Its carved cordiality ran to and fro, at first like an inlaid and royal, immutable, then afterward, neglected to be painful, deluding him with loitering formality, doing its duty as if it did it not, presenting an obstruction to the motive that it served. What stood erect in you has withered. A little palm tree of fernwood informed your once spontaneous core in its immutable. He wrote the history book. Oh, you shed a ray of whimsicality on a mask of profundity so terrific that I have been dumbfounded by it oftener than I care to say. The book, what it is, authentically brief and full of energy, you contribute to your father's legibility and are sufficiently synthetic. Oh, thank you for showing me your father's autograph. Critics and connoisseurs. There is a great amount of poetry in unconscious fastidiousness. Certain Ming products, floor coverings of coat wheel yellow, are well enough in their way. Something hard, mere childish attempt to make an imperfectly ballasted, similar determination to make a pup eat his meal. Remember, under the willows in Oxford, with flamingo-colored maple leaf, it reconnoitered. Disbelief and conscious fastidiousness were the staple ingredients in its disinclination to move. Finally, its hardihood was not proof against its proclivity to more fully appraise such bits of food as the stream bore counter to it. It made away with what it gave it to eat. I had seen this swan. I had seen you. I have seen ambition without understanding in a variety of forms. Happening to stand by an ant hill, I have seen a fastidious ant carrying a stick north, south, east, west, till it turned on itself, struck out from the flower bed. into the lawn and returned to the point from which it had started. Then, abandoning the stick as useless and overtaxing its jaws with a parade of whitewash pill-like but heavy, it again went through the same course of procedure. What is there in being able to say that one has dominated the stream in an attitude of self-defense, in proving that one has had the experience of carrying a stick? And speaking of carrying a stick, I want you to see the stick that Connor put in my direction. He changed it. He didn't say 30 minutes. He said, "Curtain, the critic has spoken. See you on Friday." Till then.